Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 29th of May, comes to you from London. And markets fell quite heavily last night in the stocks, so we're seeing that effect on that this morning. Looking at the dollar index, it actually is climbing back into bullish territory, which is what we've expected. We've got multiple upside targets on the short-term chart. If we look at the 60-minute chart here, we see we've got 4 upside targets. That gives us a very high conviction that we will rise on that dollar index. And if we look at the euro, we see here that we've got 5 downside targets, giving us a strong conviction that we will fall on the Eurodollar. So we're seeing Eurodollar bearish on all 3 time frames. Looking at the dollar yen chart, the bullishness not quite showing up here yet on the dollar, so the yen being a safe haven tends to just outperform when there's some uncertainty in the market. Sterling is sitting at 127, fairly flat against the dollar, but still bearish on all 3 time frames. We've hit the downside targets, so we need for there to be further downside, probably to see more selling thrust to create those targets, but we do have medium and long-term targets to the downside as well. The pound against euro is fairly flat, so both currencies suffering by the same amount. And against the Swiss franc, we see sterling sitting at 127, just recovering a little bit, but still looking bearish on that medium and long-term chart. The Aussie dollar, we see sterling looking weak there. Bitcoin is down 2% this morning, but still really holding on to most of the gains that we saw on Sunday. So just still looking pretty strong on that medium chart, really showing up, medium-term chart. Just a shortage of upside targets. That's probably the biggest concern here. Just not clear where Bitcoin will head next on the medium and long-term targets. Looking at the US stock market, we're down nearly 1% last night. The S&P 500 index just really struggling, hitting resistance at that same place we did in 2018 and falling away again. And just looking like a descending triangle pattern here where we're falling through support, so not looking great. We don't have big downside targets on the short-term chart, but we do have a 7% downside target on the medium-term chart. The Nasdaq also saw a sell-off, and again it's just edging lower, taking out the lows that we saw earlier in May, and again just struggling really to break out there as well. And the Dow down 0.93%, so closer to the 1% fall there. Again, the same thing, hitting this, it's almost like a triple top, hitting this resistance. So quite key there. The Russell 2000 index also just falling lower, really clearly sinking lower here, and not looking good at all. And we do have downside targets. The futures down further this morning, so the S&P future down 0.6%. And the Nasdaq E-mini down nearly 1%, so it does tell us that the US market will open lower, and we're seeing that affecting European markets this morning. The UK market down 1%, the mid-caps in the UK down 0.75%, and the DAX down 1.23%. So we are seeing quite big moves to the downside here. And the CAC 40 also down 1.5%, so some really big falls across the board. Japan was down 1% overnight, so that is also just affecting global markets. And if we look at the Hang Seng, we're up down 0.5%. China bucked the trend up 0.16%, but that's really not enough to change the picture of a bearish chart here as well. The Sensex in India was down 0.33%, and the Aussie market down 0.7%. So we are just seeing really that global sell-off. Asian market's not looking as bearish on the short-term charts as Europe or the US, but still taking flight on those US falls. Brent crude, we're seeing the sentiment weighing here as well. We're down $69, down 1% this morning. WTI, we're down 1.3%. So again, just struggling to make any gains here. US nat gas fairly flat at $2.58. Gold is up, as we might expect, up 1/3% with the turmoil in markets. It's actually improving slightly. And silver up 0.45%, though it's still in bearish mode there. US 10-year yields, we saw those falling to the 220s yesterday, just sinking a little bit lower now, $2.24%. So this 2% area starting to look quite conceivable. We had 225 as a target, we had 218 as the next target, we had 222. We've got 178 here and 201. So, and then 166 on the long-term chart. So there's 2% level, pretty critical for US 10-year yields. Taking a look at the individual stocks, first of all, we'll look at the US. Here, data coming from Yahoo Finance. Only one stock up in the Dow 30 yesterday, and that was Visa, and they've outperformed the Dow by 13% so far this year. On the downside, we had United Healthcare Group down 2.25%, Intel down 2.2%. So we are just seeing, and even Apple was down at just 0.4%. So we are seeing some pretty big falls here. Intel have had certainly a tough May, as we see here in the chart. So we've gone from 10% outperformance to 15% underperformance. Looking at the Nasdaq, we can just go for the top performers was AMD. They were up nearly 10%, and that chart actually looking pretty good compared to most. Activision Blizzard were up 2.86%. The chart not looking great. They've not really recovered from their 2018 woes. Facebook were up as well, and they are rebuilding that trend, so they're looking better in a weak market, outperforming the market by 25% so far this year. Looking at the downside, we had Kraft Heinz down 6%. And BioMarin Pharmaceuticals also just lower, and we're seeing that really showing up in the charts as well. Taking a look at the Aussie market, the best performer was Lioness Corporation. They were up 15%. That chart looking really good, breaking to new highs. A shortage of upside targets, but outperforming the market by 65% so far this year. So really is bucking the trend. Downer, EDI, they were down. The Aussie market didn't have it, they were down 9%. So starting to see an end of the trend there. Looking at China, we had a pretty mixed picture in China. The best performers were fairly few. That 8% rise there in rare earth has helped pull the whole market up. And the downside, we can see here 2% was the downside on Industrial Bank. The Nifty 50 in India, we saw here the best performers, Gale, India, they were up 2.3%. We see not many stocks up. Bharati and Patel, we're seeing them in the leaders and laggards board quite frequently. They still look weak on the chart. And then if we look at the downside, we've got Z Entertainment down a further 3.3%, and State Bank of India also down 3%. Banks fell in Europe yesterday. We're seeing that carrying forward to some of the Asian stocks. Looking over to the European markets now, in the UK we have only 4 stocks up. So here we see just a couple more coming in. Their prices coming in from Yahoo. So we've got about 7 stocks up out of the 100. And if we look at the downside, we see some pretty big falls this morning. M&S down 4.8% on their funding news. That's looking pretty weak, down 7% lower than the Dow with downside targets. Charts not looking at all good there. And if we look at Ocado, the joint venture partner, they're coming off the top a bit as well, although they still have outperformed the market by 33% so far this year. Looking at the midcaps in the UK, the best performer is Stobbart Group, up 8% this morning, but not enough really to change the chart picture there. Just a little bit of a relief rally. And if we look at the other side, Funding Circle Holdings, they're down. We saw Lendy in administration recently. That's having an impact on the sector. Vivo Energy down 4%, and Babcock International. And here was the live prices coming in from Yahoo Finance. Last of all, a look at the European market in general. We've only got one stock up. L'Oreal, it's an amazing looking chart still. L'Oreal's really bucking the market, up 11% on top of the Dow so far this year, but the rest of the market actually falling away. And if we look at the worst performers, we have Fresenius down 2.3%, Nokia down 2.3%. A lot of these charts starting to look pretty bearish. Bayer had a terrible year so far. They're down further as well. So we're just seeing quite a lot of stocks falling away. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.